As almost everything in SAP, the selection screens may also differ from each other. So, the selection screen that we have seen in this list of sales order transactions can look completely different in the case of the other transactions. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's run an SAP MM transaction, the purchasing documents per vendor, the ME2L. As you can see, it has a bit different selection screen that includes some already known elements like the input fields and the new one, the multiple selection button. Let's analyze this screen a bit. It has 25 different selection fields that all aim to further restrict the scope of the data to be displayed. 5 from these 25 selection fields allow us to select only a single value, and the other 20 selection fields allow us to select multiple values, or let's say allow us to make complex selections if it's needed. But before touching any fields on the screen, let's execute the report by pushing the checkmark button up there with a clock on it. As you can see, the report includes all the purchasing documents. We have a tons of them. Let's navigate back and play a bit with this selection screen. The first game is to select only a single value for the field document date using the value help. Let's look for the purchasing documents at 2004, September, and 20. Now let's execute the report again. This time we can only see purchasing documents that was created 2004 September 20. If I'm scrolling down in the list, we can only see purchasing documents that belong to this date. Alright. If we navigate back to the selection screen, we can see that the system forgot about our document date selection. So let's enter the 2004 September 20 again. The simplest way is to use the input field history by pushing a backspace that calls immediately the history, and then we can choose the desired value. The second game is to select individual vendors. For this, I'm pushing that multiple selection button on its right, and the new window popped up that says multiple selection for vendor. Here we have multiple tabs, but now let's only focus on the first one, named Select Single Values. We can list the vendor IDs directly into the fields, or we can use the already known value help. Here let's look for the vendors whose name contain the words electronics. I got 9 entries. Let's select the first and the third one, the NG electronics and the microelectronics. There is a problem. We cannot select multiple rows. We can highlight only one at a time. It's not a big problem. First let's select the NJ electronics, then copy its ID. Then let's use the value help again for the second row and look for the vendors whose name contain the word electronics once again. 9 entries again, but now let's select the third one and copy its ID. Now we have both of them. If you need to select only a few vendors, it's absolutely okay. But if you need, let's say, 20 or 40 vendors, then it's not too efficient. For this, let me show you a quicker approach to select multiple single values. First, let's clear the selection by pushing that dustbin icon down there. And this time, let's use the multiple selection button instead of using the value helps directly. We got a very similar pop-up window where we can look for the vendors whose name contain the word electronics. However, now we have a new column that contains multiple checkboxes that we can use to select multiple vendors. Let's mark the first and the third one, and that's it. We selected both of the vendors again, but now in a much more efficient way. If we are ready, we can push the checkmark button down there with a clock on it. If you notice, the multiple selection button for the vendor has changed. The green color indicates that the field has multiple selections. That's right, we selected two individual vendors, the NG Electronics and the Microelectronics. Alright, now let's execute the report again. As you can see, now we can only see purchasing documents for the date 2004 September 20 again, and only the documents that belong to the vendors, the NG Electronics and the Microelectronics. If we navigate back, we can notice that the selection screen forget about our settings again. It's really annoying, so let me show you something that can solve this problem. Before we do anything, let's restore the selections. Let's select the two vendors. And then let's select the proper document date. As we have restored all the selections, we can save this selection screen. So if you have a complex selection that you want to reuse multiple times, then I highly recommend to save it for further reuse. Here we need to give a technical name. I usually use the transaction code, underscore, a V letter, like variant, and then a sequence number. So let's enter ME2L underscore V01. And let's enter a description also, let's say electronics vendors. And then let's hit the save button. With this, we save the selection screen variant that we can recall anytime we need. How? I will show you that later. Now comes the third game. Let's further reset this report by selecting a value range for the materials. For this, I'm pushing that multiple selection button on its right. That popped up a very similar window, but now it's saying multiple selection for material. Here we have multiple tabs again, but now let's only focus on the second tab named Select Ranges that enables us to select multiple material number ranges if we need. Now just simply enter a range from, let's say, the material number M-04 all the way to M-07. With this, we select the purchasing documents that contain the materials M04, M05, M06 and also M07. If we are ready, we can push that checkmark button down there. But before we run the report again, let's save the selection screen changes. Now don't change anything, just let's override the existing variant for the sake of the simplicity. And now let's execute the report. We got an even narrowed list that contains only the purchasing documents that belong to the selected vendors, materials and the selected document date. Let's navigate back and talk about the fourth game, excluding single values. First, let's restore the selection screen again, but now reloading the variant by pushing that button up there next to the execute button. From the list, let's choose the proper variant. With this, we reloaded our previously saved selection screen variant. Now we are going to exclude a single document number that we can do in the multiple selection window listing single items or specifying value ranges to be excluded. But now I want to show you a much simpler approach for excluding a single item. The recipe sounds like this. Let's enter the value that you want to exclude into the input field, and then let's double click on this field that pops up a new window named Maintain Selection Options. Here, first we can toggle between the select and the exclude from the selection push buttons. And then we can choose an operator like equal, greater than equal, less than equal, greater than, less than, and the not equal. We can exclude this document number by pushing the exclude from the selection push button with choosing the operator equal to. But before running the report, let's save the selection screen again. And let's overwrite our existing variant. Now let's execute the report. Here we go. We restricted the number of purchasing documents to be displayed only to show the ones that belong to the selected vendors, material numbers, and the selected document date. Furthermore, we excluded the document number 45000161179. So the list doesn't contain this document number. Until now, we learned about the different type of the transactions, the different screen elements, after that how to use the value helps, and now how to work with the selection screens. All this means you are ready to move on and start entering some data on the screens. So join me to the next clip and let's get familiar with one of the data entry transactions and create a new quotation from scratch together with me.